Today is the 2nd of July, 2024. And our speaker today is Melissa C., who we have been blessed with to have her share with us a couple of other times at this meeting, but today is another opportunity to hear her experience, strength, and hope. Floor is now yours, Melissa.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Trish. Thanks for your service. I'll start my timer. My name is Melissa C. I'm a recovered compulsive overeater. I'm in New York, and really good to be here this morning with all of you. So, I always when I'm going to give my story, and especially to people I haven't spoken to or before, I always share my pictures, and the reason I share them is I'm really blessed because I have a physical, visible demonstration of what it means to have an experience with the miraculous. And that's what this program is about. This is a program for people, in my understanding, who require a miracle. I am someone who needed a miracle, and I received one. And lots of people get their miracles in ways that are very internal, and others might not see that. I have that too. I have this internal transformation, which is miraculous. But I'm also lucky. And I say lucky in that I suffered in morbid obesity. And why does that make me lucky? Because I no longer suffer from that. And I have the visible proof to say God exists and there's a miracle available. And that's the only way that I can explain it. So I'm gonna share my photos, and there are so many of them. So I'm gonna try to be fast. Otherwise, my whole share will be my photos, and I see it's loading. Okay, so this I've been in and out of. First of all, I've suffered my whole life with morbid obesity, with struggling diets. I say morbid obesity. There were periods of my life where I was not obese, where I dieted, but I was still suffering for morbid obesity. I was still suffering from this disease. And these are pictures. My daughter is 23 today. So 20, not today, but she's 23 now. This was when I first had her. And I thought, we were so happy. We were so in love, my husband and I, and this new baby. I thought, no way am I going to continue to kill myself with food. Now I'm going to get it right. I've got this baby I want to be healthy for. And that didn't help, because here I am. She got older and I got bigger. So having a baby, having my dreams, having a husband that loves me didn't work. And these are some more pictures. This is me. I'm having a party in my house that day. I did not look like I was having a party. I could barely brush my hair. I could barely brush my teeth. My house was a mess and I was a mess. And this is me on vacation. I'm smiling. I'm happy. I was maybe hours away from a relapse. By the way, I was abstinent in this picture. And I know exactly what I picked up. And I took me right out of OA again. So vacations and parties and new babies and happy marriage was never my solution. Those aren't miracles. Those are wonderful things. And here's my my husband, myself, and my daughter when she was little. We always went to restaurants because food was my master. My master told me what I liked. I thought I liked restaurants. I really don't even like restaurants today. I think they're very boring to sit around and just eat. But this was us, a lot of our pictures were taken at a table. And this is a more recent picture. And I always love to show side-by-side photos because I think it's a great way to see that there's a miracle that's available. This is me and my sister, my sister-in-laws. Big drink in hand. I know there was food in my pocket. I walked into every single family event with a fake smile on my face. I know that fake smile. I could see it's so fake. It's not genuine. And I had to drink a lot and had to eat a lot to stomach the people that loved me. That's the truth. These people loved me. And it took alcohol and food so that I could deal with being in their company. This is more, this picture here in the gray, I always like to show this because I was recovered in that picture. And I see the difference in my eyes. My body hadn't caught up yet because part of what I refrain from is not just compulsive eating, but compulsive food behaviors, which for me is diets and quick schemes and radical, solutions, things that just didn't work. So I wasn't dieting anymore in this picture. So it took my body a while to catch up, but I was recovered. I had worked all 12 steps. I had had a spiritual awakening, and I knew it because this was my daughter's bas mitzvah. And I remembered feeling, how is it that this whole family that I used to have to drink and eat to deal with are wonderful people? When did they change? Like, all of a sudden, I went to this affair that I was paying for, had an open bar that I wasn't drinking, had cocktail hour, had food galore, had a room for dessert, and none of the food called my name. And I was happily, providing it for the family that I loved, and my resentments were gone. And I, like, it was an outer body experience that day. It just felt so amazing. And this was a more recent picture of my mom and my siblings and myself at my one of my niece's weddings. And here's some more like recent pictures: me, my sister, my mom, and me and my brother. I no longer hate these people. This was when my son was a baby. I could barely get my arms around him. And he was so active. I was miserable. Can you imagine? I wanted this child more than anything. And rather than delighting in his healthy activity, I cried because I couldn't keep up with him. He was running up and down the stairs at like 9 months. I like wanted to pull my hair out. And and I couldn't hold him either. I couldn't chase him and I couldn't hold him. And that was torturous. That was misery. And here's, visible demonstration of a miracle. Same baby, same husband, right? Same, he's grown up, he's a little more grown there. And there's a more recent picture. Um, this is me, now in my basic current state. These are within the last, 10 years. Every one of those dresses fits me. I know it. I go in the closet, I pull it out. And that is a miracle. That's something I never experienced before. These are family photos side by side, what it was like and what it's currently like. There's my daughter, her wife, my son, my husband. We got older. I'm in a healthy, active body. Remember I said, like, we always ate in restaurants. That's just what we did. I always ate in restaurants. I'm drinking here, I'm eating here, I'm large here. My husband and I, this is a more recent picture. When food is not your master, you actually find out what you love. I love hiking. I love hiking. I love kayaking. I love music festivals. I go to outdoor music festivals. I go hiking. I go all over the place, and I have this little lunchbox that I carry with me, with my food. I never have to worry about what I'm going to eat. I have a full living experience. And these are some of my wonderful, friends in Overeaters Anonymous. I go to OA birthday parties. I go to OA retreats. I'm out there carrying the message. I've been gifted a new life. I don't know what happened to that picture, but it got turned upside down. I'm sorry about that. Here's more, other pictures of at the OA birthday party. If you've never been, here's a plug, Susan. Go to the OA birthday party. You're going to see all your friends. I don't know what happened there. That got turned around too, but that's a dear sponsee friend of mine, other friends of mine, my sweet friend Susan. I was leading a retreat with my friends. I lead retreats. I do workshops. I get to go all over the world. I have this incredible, incredible big life, um, and that's called a miracle, right? To me, that's just there's no other way that I could describe what God has done for me, but to say miracle, you know. So, I'm pretty certain, like if I tell you my story, I'm pretty certain that I was born with this disease, or at least with the potential to have this disease. I have always had a different experience with food than my family members. I'm the youngest of five kids. I'm a big, loud, overbearing, loving family. My first words were more. That's what I was told. My first word was more. Totally makes sense. I am a more machine. Even to this day, that is something. Forget food. I just like more. I like more of everything. If I like one, I want 100 of them. But I know that about myself today, and I'm no longer enslaved by that today. That's the difference. Um, so I've dieted my whole life. And I know this particular topic is relapse. And I'm gonna share with you a little bit that my earliest foray into Overeaters Anonymous, I came after graduating college. I was 280 pounds. I had been dieting. I had been dieting up and down the scale my entire life. I had years of thin and years of fat and years of thin and years, and I could never seem to get it straight, to get it right. And somebody, mentioned Overeaters Anonymous to me. I was living in misery at the time. My friends were getting married and they were getting good jobs, and I wasn't. And I was pissed. And I was like, okay, I'll do this other thing. And I went to Overeaters Anonymous and I found out some really good information. I found out one is I have a disease, and I'm not the only one. And two, I found out that there were foods that created a response in me that I was powerless over once I ingested those foods. And all of a sudden I was like, that makes sense. That is why I could never eat, one or two, but I always broke out in more. And so when I found that out, that I had an allergy of the body, I was like, okay. And I took that information and I ran with it, because that particular meeting that I went to gave me a food plan. And it worked. Actually, that food plan was pretty effective. Um, but it didn't change my thinking. What it did was it changed so that I was no longer ingesting those foods. And I was young and I was extraordinarily motivated. I wanted to get married. That was like my goal at the time. I was like, I just want to meet a guy. I want to get married. I want to move out of my folks' house. I want a good job. I want, like, what I saw as like life. And so I put the food down, and I don't know, I'm blessed. I got those things. I actually got those things. I met my husband. I was thin. Um, and God just smiled on me, because I'm with the same man. He's been in my life for 30 years. He's been with me through thick and thin. I love him. Um, but he wasn't my solution. You know, I went on my honeymoon with this guy. I was thin. Somebody in over OA years ago said that you did the old bait and switch on the poor guy. And I'm like, oh, that is what I did, because, I was abstinent. I was a different person when food was not in control of me. I wasn't recovered. I want to tell you, I wasn't recovered, but I was abstinent. And that goes a bit of a way. That worked until it didn't work. And what happened for me was I went on my honeymoon with my husband. Here's my relapse story, right? I had been abstinent for years. I met my husband then. We lived together. I followed this food plan. I got married. I was a normal size. And I went on my honeymoon and I looked around, and I remember it. We were like in the pool and I was wearing a bathing suit and I looked normal. And I saw other young newlywed couples. I looked like them, and they were drinking beautiful frozen tropical drinks. It looked like a party in a glass. And I was like, I want one of those. I had forgotten who I was. See, I'm someone, I can't drink, because for me, I drink and I eat. If I drink, I get drunk and I eat. It's like, now I don't believe I'm an alcoholic, because once I get drunk, I'm done drinking. But once I get drunk, I want to eat. Once I have a drink, I want to eat. And I knew that. And somehow I forgot it on this honeymoon. I failed to remember because memory will never hold me in check. My memory is not a strong enough solution. It's not a miracle. Memory is not miracle. So I picked up a drink on that honeymoon, and it was like I could mark that day on the calendar, because the rest of the honeymoon, I wasn't interested in excursions. I wasn't interested in snorkeling. I wasn't interested in anything. I I wanted to hang out at the bar, at the pool, and drink and eat. And, that's one way to do a honeymoon. And we actually had fun. I mean, I didn't know I was powerless on that honeymoon because I didn't want to stop. I was having a good time. When did I find out that I was in trouble? When I came home. First of all, by the time my honeymoon was over, none of my cute clothes fit me, because when I am like, I am no joke. I don't understand people who just pick up a little bit and get right back on. When I eat, I eat. I mean, if I and that's one of the things that keeps me in check today. I know, make no mistake. I know that if I were to pick up any of my alcoholic foods today, I don't think you'd see me again. I don't. I can't. I mean, it would be years. It would probably be months and years. And when I started eating again, when I picked up, I must have gained on that honeymoon. I probably gained 20 pounds. I mean, easily. So by the time I came home, nothing fit me. I was like squeezing into my clothes. And then I um I realized that I was in real trouble was when I came home. I was certain that I was going to get right back on that food plan, because at that point in my life, I had a God, and the God was abstinence. And the food plan was the religion I practiced. That was my whole solution. And I could not get back on that food plan. I would go to the store, I would buy the food, and it would rot in my refrigerator, and my car like a magnet through the drive-through. And within a few years, I was morbidly obese again. I mean, I was gaining weight so rapidly in my early marriage, and I was miserable. I just spent so much time crying and hating myself. I had this husband that loved me. I had the job that I wanted, had, and I was eating it all away. And then I spent the next number of years battling again. I could not muster up. I couldn't go back to OA, by the way, because I had such vanity. I wanted to come back victorious. I did not want anybody to come back. I didn't want anybody to see me come back having gained weight. I if you can't get yourself back to a meeting because you're waiting until you look good enough to go back to that meeting, you're trying to go to the wrong meeting. Like I had it all wrong. This, we're here because we need help. We're here because we cannot do it on our own. And so I tried every other solution repeatedly, over and over and over and over and over again. And I would have periods of okayness. Losing weight was my okayness, always followed by a worse, always followed by a worse. And, you know, um, in the height of my insanity with this disease, now I did try to come back a number of times. I would go back, I would get it for a little bit, and I would disappear again. I did the old like sidestep out, and really, when I look at it now and I think, what was different? What was different? Well, every time I came back, I wanted to do it my way. I wanted really, really, really what I wanted was I wanted what I call OA light. I wanted the plan where I could show up once a week, dump all my problems at your doorstep, and then march right back out the door and do whatever the hell I wanted. I did not want to have to change the way that I was behaving with my family. No, thank you. I did not want to have to be honest about things. I wanted to be able to wreak havoc wherever I went and still be thin. And maybe I think if you don't have this problem, that might work for you. but I actually require a wholesale transformation. I needed a reworking of me through the inside out. I needed to be a different me. And that was one of the wisest things that a sponsor ever said to me. She said, I remember I went to a meeting and I said, I don't know, this sounds like brainwashing to me. Because she was, she was trying to like share some of those spiritual principles that I was like resistant. And I said, this sounds like brainwashing. And she said, well, maybe your brain is dirty. Maybe it needs a good washing. And I was like, holy smokes, And then someone else said to me, the Melissa that you have been is not sufficient enough. You are going to need to change, not just what you eat, but you're going to have to change. Because I used to also say things like, yeah, no, I know myself. That won't work for me. Like anytime something was suggested that was hard, that made me uncomfortable, whether it was an amend, whether it was pray for someone who's pissing you off, whether it was commit your food. By the way, I didn't want to commit my food to whether it was, I remember a sponsor said to me, I had said to her, knowing what I know about alcohol, right? I had said to her, I'm going to go to this party, I'm going to have some drinks. And she said, excuse me, what does that mean? And I said, well, I'm going to have some drinks. And she said, let's talk about that. And she had said to me, how much? And I was like, I don't know. And she said, can you bring a measuring cup? I was like, what? She had said, well, if you can't measure a quantity of it out, how are you going to know if you're like having too much of it? And I was like, I am not bringing a measuring cup to my friend's house. I was like, no. And she said, well, can you go and not have the drink? And I was like, no, no. And then she said, maybe you shouldn't go. And I hung up on her. I was like, click. Now, I mean, the funny thing is years later, when I became so desperate, guess who I asked for help? You know, because at that point I was done. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I do need a good brainwashing. My brain is dirty. I needed a change. And I needed someone who was going to tell me the truth, who was going to not say, you can't have this, but who was going to ask me the questions that revealed what the truth was for me. And I think, what I did was I began to cooperate. I worked these steps like I meant business because I did. I no longer tried to think, what's the OA light way? I no longer looked around the room and tried to find the thinnest person who was doing the least amount of work. Like I stopped actually looking around the room and I started looking at the demonstration of my own life, who I was and how I was living. And I have to say, I'm so grateful. First of all, I'm grateful that I was sick enough that I required this program because what happened for me was I worked the steps and I actually had an experience where, one of my favorite things that talks about um, what happened to me, it's God entered my heart and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. I reached the point from which I knew that there was no escape through human aid. And I had two alternatives. One was to accept spiritual help, and the other one is to go on blotting out the consciousness of this intolerable situation as best I could. And I didn't want to live that way anymore. I didn't want to blot out my life anymore. I actually wanted to live my life. And so I engaged full on with the work of these steps. And what happens is I had a huge emotional rearrangement. Ideas, emotions, and attitudes, which were once the guiding force of the life of me, suddenly cast aside, and a whole new set of conceptions and motives began to dominate me. That's what happened. You know, I guess I got brainwashed and it worked. Everything in my life got better. You know, the great fact, I want to end, really with this, because this is it. The great fact is just this and nothing less, that we have had deep and effective spiritual experiences, which have revolutionized our whole attitude toward life, toward our fellows, and towards God's universe. The central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty that our Creator has entered into our hearts and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. He has commenced to accomplish those things for us which we could never do by ourselves. And that's what happened to me, that God entered my heart and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. And now here's the thing, if you would like God to enter your heart, we're so freaking lucky because we actually have a step by step, 12-step set of directions that allow for the entry of God into your heart, the God of your understanding, whatever that means for you. And I am certain today that that's what happened to me. There is nothing for me. There is nothing agnostic about that for me. I have no uncertainty. I'm not telling you what God is or defining God. That's a totally separate, issue altogether. And we have no problem with that. Like, it's okay. You believe how you believe. But I will tell you that there is some incredible, powerful force that entered my heart and changed my life. And not just changed my physical form. I've been relieved of over 160 pounds. And I've lived in a normal sized, healthy body, thank you, God, with no diets, no quick schemes, nothing. I'm at total, and I feel like at 55, I am at home inside this human skin shell. That's what I feel like today. My body, I am not my body, but my body is my best friend on this journey because I can't experience life without it, right? It's the only way that I can experience this life here on this planet. So I feel at peace in this skin home today. And I never felt that my entire life. And the other thing is that what I thought was my greatest problem, which was morbid obesity and food, was actually a beautiful entry into a relationship with a power that has helped me with every single one of my real problems, which is called life. It helped me with issues with my kids. You know, it helped me with issues with my mother, with my siblings, with bosses, with neighbors, with workplace, with the entire universe. I mean, that I don't believe if I ever suffered from morbid obesity and I reached a point where I ate till my mouth bled and I exercised till I broke my foot, and I never reached that point, I never would have been willing to have a total rearrangement inside. And so for that, I am truly blessed and really happy to be here with all of you today. And I will pass.